let me tell you, those of you that came on time, absolutely gold medal, chocolate fish for each and every one of you. I hope your evening is going well. Oh, look at that. So many people logging in. That's fantastic. So we'll just give a couple of more minutes for people to jump in, if that's all right. Awesome. I'll just record that as well in here. Fantastic. And just one moment. You guys are awesome. While we're waiting for others to turn up, what I would like to find out is, where are we streaming in from tonight? In the chat bar, can you please put down where in the world are you guys? That would be amazing. And this is just to get you used to talking back to me, because obviously you cannot talk at the same time as I do. But the chat bar is a way for us to communicate with each other. Awesome. Waikanae. Hello, Waikanae. I'm in Waikanae. Wellington. Hello, Wellington. Dunedin. Love the pink outfit. Thank you. Thank you. I'm changing my brand colors to pink. I think pink suits me. Waikanae. Hello, Rachel. Good to see you. Thank you so much for jumping in. That's fantastic. Pink looks great. Right, guys, we're not at the fashion show. We are the property investors webinar here tonight. Hi, Daniel. Oh, Daniel, good to see you. Thank you for jumping in. Lucy, hello. Thank you for jumping in. That's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. I've prepared a really cool webinar for you tonight. I hope you will enjoy this. I'm going to share some gems. Everything that's in this head that's been learned in the last 11 years, you're going to receive that as we propel through this hour. I'm hoping it's not going to last longer than an hour, because I know everyone gets Zoom fatigue. And we will allow some time for Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to either put them in the Q&A button at the bottom there, you probably see that, or in the chat bar, or save them until the end, because I might have answered them along the way. And while we're waiting for other people to turn up, can I please ask you all to grab a piece of paper and a pen and a calculator, because we will be doing some real numbers tonight, and I need you to write things down, because I will be going really fast at certain points, and we do have certain formulas to look at. Done and ready, Daniel. That's fantastic. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Cool. So other people, go and get yourself a pen and paper. I've had few apologies tonight as well. You guys are awesome. For those that apologize, absolutely huge respect. I had few people message me going, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I can't come in. Can you please record? This is why we're recording it, so other people can, hopefully the ones that registered can rewatch this. The reason I like doing this live is because live you get to ask your questions. When we watch it in recording, I know you can rewind me back and forth when you're watching it in the recording, and that's fun. But when it's live, you get the real experience here. And guys, if you have any other topics that you'd like me to cover in the future, please feel free to share that as well with me, and I will try to arrange one webinar a month for you. Cool. Now that we've covered that you all can hear me and see me, we're going to start shortly. But before we start, what I would like to find out is, why are you here tonight? What do you want to learn? What are your fears? What are your hopes? Put it in the chat bar so I get a bit of feedback. Why are you here tonight? What landed you in here with me? Guys, can you still hear me? If you can hear me, can you please let me know, why are you here tonight? What are your hopes? What are your fears? What are you trying to achieve? How to invest in property? How to make the most of it? Awesome. How to build up equity? Okay. Bought our first house in Dunedin with your help. Thank you. Now on rental number 2, future thinking. Okay. Awesome. Fantastic. Alrighty. What current situation with investment properties right now? Awesome. Thank you, Tanya. Appreciate that. Good job, everyone. Thank you. Thank you. Alrighty. So let's begin. Without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to jump onto PowerPoint and we're going to go. How to make your mortgage shorter than 30 years, Daniel. Okay. All right. Thank you. So let me see. Does this work? Can you guys see my screen? If you can see my screen, can you put it in the chat bar that you can see it? Perfect. Beautiful. Awesome. Fantastic. Just want to make sure it's all... Is it fully shared? I hope it's fully shared. Okay. All right, let's go. So, welcome. You are here tonight with me to learn about property investment. And I truly hope that through the night, you will learn the absolute basics. When you learn these basics, you should be able to put that into motion for the future. And this is, the basics have sort of stayed the same. I've been in the industry for more than 11 years now, and the basics have stayed the same, the true basics. Now, the presentation is for educational purposes, just a quick disclaimer. And it should not be in any way taking a specific financial advice. So if you do want any specific financial advice, please reach out to your advisor, whether that's me or whether you've got anyone else in your life. Don't take this as an advice to you. All right, we're clear on that? I hope we're clear on that. Great. Can you guys actually see my PowerPoint? You can see my PowerPoint, right? Yes, beautiful. Okay. But before we begin, let me tell you a story of a young girl I knew. So this young girl, she absolutely dreamed of a dollhouse. Just like any other 7-year-old girl, she really enjoyed playing with dolls and all the imaginative play that, you know, young girls do. Her dolls went to school, her dolls brushed their hair, she brushed her hair, etc. And the only one thing she didn't have was a doll's house. And she absolutely dreamed of a dollhouse. So she begged and begged of her parents to get her dollhouse. And finally, when her parents gave in and they said, okay, fine, we'll get your dollhouse, the tragedy struck the family. Unfortunately, the father of the family passed away, and this poor young girl has found herself without a dollhouse and without a father. But to make the matters worse, the father's family came around and they claimed the house to be their own. So now this young girl has found herself on the streets with her family, with her mother, and not only she didn't have a doll's house anymore, but she didn't have a father and she didn't have a family home over her head. And at that moment in her life, she realized having a house is super, super important. But not only just for yourself to live in, but for your children as well. And so she made a promise to herself that when she grows up, she will go on this journey of getting lots and lots of houses, because obviously a house is an important thing. If it gets taken away from you, it must be important. So she grew up, and true to her word, she bought her first home, and then she had children, and then she bought a few more houses because she wanted each of her children to have a property. So something that started with the wish of having a doll's house turned into an investment property career. And this young girl, as you would have guessed, is me. So my name is Zibonisa Limova. I've been in New Zealand for over 20 years, and I'm proud to say that I do have several investment properties because I do have 4 children, and I believe having a property over your head and having several other properties to protect you for the future is super, super important. And I did buy myself a dollhouse in the end, but this is something for my daughter to play with now. So without further ado, let's get into the presentation, because I want you to learn how you can repeat or sort of repeat the journey that I had, how you can buy the second house with no deposit, how you can make money in the real estate, and hopefully learn where to buy. And before we do this, I would like to share a couple of other stories of my clients as well. One of them, this guy, absolutely proud of him, Carl, regular guy, works 9 to 5. Actually, he works really, really hard, more than 9 to 5. But he's managed to scrape by and get his first home a few years ago with 10% deposit, right? He didn't have any parent help, and he just worked his butt off to get himself on the ladder. But what happened next absolutely propelled him. He continued to work hard. He continued to pay down. He continued to save cash on the side as well. And then what we did next for him is we managed to get him a second property, a third property, and a fourth. And funny enough, just earlier this year, he came to me and he said, look, Zibonisa, I don't know if it's possible for me to buy one more property, but can you just have a look at it? And we looked at his numbers, and sure enough, he did have enough there to squeeze just about 400K. And I said, Carl, guess what? You got approved within like 2 or 3 days. This guy is absolute legend as well. Within 2 or 3 days, got him approved for about 400K, and he went out and got himself a fourth property. So just to show that it is possible, even in this market, is to get ahead on a single income. All right, you just got to structure things correctly. Now, the other story I would like to share with you, and hopefully that will inspire people from overseas maybe or on overseas income, is I've got Adam, and he's an absolute legend as well. I knew Adam's family for a bit. Adam's dad passed Adam my details, and Adam reached out. He was based overseas, living full-time in Australia, but traveling in between. And he's already had a property in Australia, but he just wanted to get back into New Zealand market and put down his roots in New Zealand. And the first property he managed to buy was 35% deposit because it was his investment property. But then we managed to get him across for the second property with no deposit, purely leveraging off his first home. And what does leverage mean? I will let you know very, very soon, but just keep that in mind that it is possible. The next family I've got to share with you, because you're probably sitting there going, well, those guys, just guys working, good jobs, da-da-da. But I've got this awesome family, Daniel and Tina. I've known them for absolute years. And now they came to me a few years ago. They wanted to buy their first home. Again, they absolutely scraped in, had 10% deposit. And then they managed to buy a second property with no deposit, leveraging the equity. Now, leverage, very, very important word that we use a lot in my industry. Then they managed to get their third property. And then last year, Daniel came to me and he's like, look, I'm a mechanic. I'm sick of working for someone else. I want to work for myself. There is a workshop that's for sale and it comes with the building. I said to him, Daniel, don't be crazy. Life of a self-employed person is nuts. You will hate it. He's like, no, I'll love it. Okay, before we knew it, we got him a commercial building as well, purely using his other properties as collateral. Now, Daniel absolutely loves his job, I believe, and especially being self-employed. So again, this is just to show you guys that it is absolutely possible, regardless of where you are on your journey. You just got to sit down, make a plan, talk to an advisor, and go from there. But just to give you some numbers for New Zealand, if you look into it, we've got over 5 million people living in New Zealand, and only 500,000 own one property, and about 250,000 own between 3 to 20. So the people that I've just shown you are absolute legend when it comes to numbers and percentages. But what do they know that you don't know? What is it something that they have that you don't have? Let's look into it further. So here is the meaty part. Start writing things down. There's 3 absolute basics that you gotta know: equity, income, and a property location. So equity is basically, as we've discussed just before, using your house. And then how do you know about the right income? How do you know about the property location? Now, how do you calculate your equity? How many of you here know how does the bank calculate your equity? Because this is one of the first things that I come across that people don't do right. They get the absolute wrong numbers, and then I have to play a game with them of expectation and reality. So for those that are listening right now, can you put in the chat bar for me, do you know how to calculate your equity? You don't need to tell me about your equity. Just do you know, yes or no? Do you know how to calculate your equity? Or how does the bank calculate your equity? Cool. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. Awesome. So let's look into it. Here is the absolute truth that I would like to give you, and a lot of brokers probably going to hate me tonight because this is the information we hold dear to our hearts. We do not share this information normally because this is how we make money. All right. Now, if your house is valued 1 million, we can loan up to 80% against your house. If it's your owner occupied, if you already bought it, you got to have at least 20% deposit. If your mortgage is 500, what do you think will be your available equity here? Do you guys know the answer to this one? What is your available equity? I won't make you suffer. It's 300. Because remember, you can only go up to 80%. So I can only lend you up to 800. Now you take away the mortgage from that 800, you end up with your available equity. So in the next slide, I'm going to give you a formula. Get your piece of paper and a pen, write this down. So you take your loanable equity, usually it's up to 80%. It does get more complicated, and that's why you need someone like me, because the more properties you have, the more complex it will get. So this is your formula to work with through the times of life. Loanable equity, take away mortgage, will give you your available usable equity. Now, usable is a very important word in here. Because then what do you do next, right? How do you use it? So let's have a look. If you've got 300K as an available usable equity, you can either buy one home at $1 million, because you need 30% deposit for your investment property. So you take that available usable equity and you can buy one home at 1 million. Or you can buy 2 houses at 500K each. Now, do you guys get how rich people get rich and how it just goes from there? They don't save day in, day out. They just keep using the equity. Every time they get equity, they go buy another house. They go buy another house. It's a domino effect. So for those that are sitting there thinking, how does my friend do it? Or how does my neighbor do it? How come they're so rich? They're not. It's just they keep using the equity of their properties, and it just escalates from there. And the secret is here as well. If you were to buy a brand new property as an investment, all you need is 20% deposit. Here I'm using, for the simplicity of the calculations, I'm using 30% deposit for your investment property. But if you were to buy new build, you can even have 20. Does this make sense to you guys? Have I lost you? Are you still with me? I hope it makes sense. And if it's not, again, feel free to reach out after and we can run some real numbers for you. But seriously, this is like the absolute basics that you just got to know for the rest of your life. If you don't know anything else, remember these calculations. Hopefully that helps. Now, normally at this point, you want to know, what sort of properties to go after, because obviously 1 million property will give you a completely different return than 2 properties at 500. So what is the best return on rental? And let's look into this a little bit further, because the rental yield, what we normally call as a rental yield in investment world, is basically what's the return you get on your investment. And usually the good rental yield should be at least 5% or more. If you find properties that give you 10%, oh my God, amazing, go for it. And again, I'll teach you how to calculate this and I will break it down. But this is your moment to write down another formula so you can use it for the future. So rental yield is what you get annually for your rent, and you divide that by your current property value. All right, multiply that by 100, you get a percentage. So to make it less complicated, let's look at the real scenario here. So you've got a house price at 500. Your weekly rent is $500 a week. So you get $26,000 annual rent. Divide that by 500K house price, multiply by 100. Your rental yield is 5.2%. And again, the reason you need to know these numbers is sometimes people say to me, well, am I better off putting money in a term deposit? Well, the term deposit, at the moment, the term deposits are performing really awesome because the interest rates are high on home loans. But historically, the term deposits were around 3 to 4%, versus on a property, you can get 5%. And this is not even including the property going up in value. So see what I'm getting at? So instead of keeping your money in a savings account at 3%, your property rental could be giving you at 5%. This is why this number is also important to remember. So I hope you've written down the formula for this. If not, again, reach out. We will talk about it further. So just to give you a little bit of brain action, let's look at our other scenario of buying a property at 1 million. Rent is 900 per week. What do you think the yield is? I'll give you a minute. Who gets the answer right gets a chocolate fish. I'll bring some water while you're guessing. Use the chat bar once you know the answer. I did tell you to have a calculator ready when you first logged in. Wow, Jordan, you get chocolate fish, my friend. And Rachel, you next. Amazing. Fantastic, guys. Just absolutely amazing. 4.68. Perfect. You got it. Very easy formulas to use, very easy to remember. Write it down for the future. Now, that brings me to the next question that people usually ask me. What sort of properties I should go for, apartments or houses, etc. And then I ask them back, well, what type of investor are you? Are you income driven, or can you wait and see? Can you wait and see what's going to happen? Let's break it down a little bit. So income-driven people are the ones that are going after apartments, Airbnbs, border houses that have like 10 bedrooms in there. But those sort of places don't tend to go up in value fast. They don't tend to get capital gains fast. So if you're looking to buy and sell really fast, this is not the right investment for you. This is for you to get lots of income, but it's not going to go up in value really fast. So you probably won't be able to leverage off this sort of properties really fast, unless it's like an amazing Airbnb or an amazing border house. Okay, cool. But normally, if it's an apartment, it's not going to go up in value really fast. So don't expect to leverage off it within the next year or two. But if you are able to wait and see and get the houses to go up in value and go after, certain high growth areas, or predict where the high growth areas are going to be, then this is a cool way to leverage in the future. It's not going to give you as much income as the apartments or Airbnbs or the border houses, but at least it will give you an ability to build house portfolio like we have in this picture. All right, makes sense? I hope it makes sense. Now, my favorite topic of all times, and a lot of people ask me this next after what we've covered when it comes to income. What's more certain in life than death? You probably all know the answer to this question. Absolutely right. Tax. So, taxes in New Zealand. When you own a rental property, it's considered to bring you income. Therefore, you got to pay tax. All right. There are two types of taxes when it comes to investment properties. Well, there could be 100 million others. But tonight, just to keep it simple, I'm going to explain to you about the rental income tax and the sale of property. To calculate the rental income tax, get your piece of paper ready. Write this down. You get your gross rental income. You take away your expenses, and that goes into your yearly tax return. Now, your rental expenses could include your maintenance, property management fees, gifts to your tenants, etc., etc. But don't try to do it yourself. Get an accountant for this sort of stuff, because the last thing you want is IRD on your case that you've done it wrong. So please, one of the golden rules for investors is have the right accountant, have the right advisor by your side so you can get things sorted properly. And then when you sell a house, currently the bright line tax is about 10 years. So if you sell within 10 years, you've got to pay capital gains. Well, again, it depends when you bought it, etc., etc. But just for the case of this webinar, we'll keep it simple, keep it 10 years. However, it is looking to be brought down to 2. And under the new government, thank you very much. So what you will see, I think, from 1st of July is a lot of properties being dumped back on the market by the investors that are going to be reinvesting, buying, selling, buying, selling. If you are selling your owner-occupied property, it's usually tax exempt. You don't have to pay tax on that. But again, guys, please have proper team on your side. This is just absolute basics that I'm telling you, but something for you to be aware of if you are looking to get into property investment, because this matters. Now, we briefly touched on the property management, so let's look into it a little bit further. How do you normally calculate the commission that you pay to your property manager? Is you take your property rent, you multiply that by the commission rate, and then you get the property management commission fee that you pay out of it. Now, normally the property managers charge anywhere between 7 to 10%, or even 11 or 13. Again, depends where in the country we are. Some areas, thank you very much, Rachel, for your knowledge today. Some areas in New Zealand could be less than 7. But again, look around, talk to your property manager. If you've got multiple properties, you could come to some sort of agreement, some sort of solution. So there are always pros and cons, but hands down, having a property manager, if you've got multiple properties, in my books, it's a must. Yes, you might be saving yourself a certain amount of money if you manage it yourself. But hey, guys, just like anything else in life, if you want to do it seriously, if you want to do it properly, don't try to do it yourself unless it's your own occupation. I mean, I know how to brush my teeth, but I'm not going to go and put a filling in my own tooth, right? I'll go to a dentist. So same thing here. You know how to look after the house, but if it's an investment property, you probably don't know all the ins and outs that these people are trained to do. So please, absolutely go and do your research into the property management. Now, just to give you a formula in a different way, please write this down. So let's say $400 per week. We multiply that by commission of 7.66. So your fee per week to the property manager will be $30. Now, for that $30, you get peace of mind that your property is well looked after, you got good tenants, and that your property rent stays on par. For instance, just to give you an example, the first house that we've bought in Palmerston North, it's currently rented out. My beautiful tenant, she's been there for 9 years. And I haven't increased her rent in the last forever. So she is paying way below the market, way below the market. And that's purely because I was self-managing it myself. I felt sorry for her. She's a single mom. And, I was like, oh, well, whatever. But all my other properties that are managed by a property manager, all of their rent is really, really high and on par with the market. So that just shows that when you try to manage it yourself, the emotions run higher. When you give it away to the property manager, you're not as attached to it. You're not as emotionally connected. So it's purely business. It's a business decision that takes you day in, day out. Now, remember, apart from having the property management fees, there could be other fees as well that the property managers charge. But again, ask that of them as you go. And the other important thing that a lot of property investors forget to look at is the budget. So make sure you are budgeting for rates, insurances, property management fees, future renovations and upkeep, especially if you're not buying a brand new property. Make sure you've got money aside for that. And again, if you're working with the broker, for a lot of my clients, I set them up with a revolving facility that has at least 6 months of rent covered in there. Sometimes I would give them even more, but I always make sure they have at least 6 months of rent covered, because if they suddenly find themselves outside of the tenanted, the tenant moved out, they haven't got a new one, you still got to pay the mortgage. Your mortgage doesn't stop. So you've got to make sure you have that buffer sitting there. All right. Now let's move on to how do you find the right property for you. So I'm going to keep really brief, absolutely brief. But again, write this down, guys, because this is super, super important. CoreLogic. You got to live and breathe property if this is what you want to do. If you want to get on a ladder and have several properties, write yourself a goal. How many properties you want to have, by when. Because when you write those goals, it will come true, it will happen. So CoreLogic will give you that information. It's full of various research, it's full of various data. So there's lots of free information out there on CoreLogic, and it's from reliable source. Don't try to talk to your Uncle Bob, because talking to Uncle Bob is not going to be helpful. So CoreLogic, and then there's also Velocity. So it's very simple, corelogic.co.nz. Go in, check it out. Now, another website, if you didn't know about this one, absolute gem of a website, Tenancy. It's called Tenancy website. So you just go in, on Google, go Tenancy website, New Zealand. It will bring you to this place. You can download bond forms from there. You can download agreements from there. But the most important thing that it does, it shows you an average rent across the whole New Zealand. So you can actually put various regions of New Zealand, and it will spit out a table to you that shows, okay, 3-bedroom house in Dunedin, this is the average rent for it. 2-bedroom house, this is the average rent. 4-bedroom house, this is the average rent. You can even drill down by areas, by certain areas in that town. So write it down. Go and play with that tomorrow. See where you can find good yielding properties, so to speak. And then obviously a lot of people know homes.co.nz. So you just go on homes.co.nz, find a property, and then go and check out the tenancy website, how much it could be rented out for. Now, again, that just shows the average. Often it could be more than that if you work with the right property manager. Now, a couple of exciting news, some good ones and some bad ones for investors. DTI. Who is here knows what DTI stands for? I love my abbreviations, apart from my name. Do not abbreviate my name. But who here knows what DTI stands for and LVR? Another chocolate fish to give away. Oh, Rachel, look at you. Awesome. Debt to income. Fantastic. So debt to income ratio is going to be 7 from 1st of July. And a lot of banks are spitting out new calculators to us, new policy guides, etc. So we know what to do and how to calculate your income when it comes to rental. So 7 times, let's say if you're earning 100K, times that 7, the maximum you can borrow, 700K. It's simple as that. All right. When it comes to rental, again, this is where it gets a bit more complex. This is where you need our help to put those clever numbers in clever places. But the most exciting news, so that was the bad news, and the good news is the LVR is moving to 70%. So what is LVR? Who knows what LVR stands for? Yay, go Zoe. Awesome. Loan to value ratio. So loan to value ratio, 70%, meaning that you got to have 30% deposit. Remember, I was harping on in the beginning about 30%. This is what it is. So 30%. Okay. Before it used to be 35, and before it was 40. Now, I do remember when I first bought my first investment property, it was 80, 20. Yeah. So it was 80% at the time. So I was very lucky. But remember, as I said to you before, you can buy a brand new build with 80% LVR. So don't lose hope. Now, I will probably sound like a broken machine at this point, but guys, what makes a property investor successful, hands down, is teamwork. You got to have a team of amazing people around you if you want to succeed. You got to have a good mortgage advisor. If it's not me, that's fine. No hard feelings. Go find one that will fight for you, that will absolutely go above and beyond to make sure that you succeed. You got to have a good lawyer by your side to save you from mistakes that you're about to make. You got to have a good accountant to make sure that you're doing everything right by the books. And you got to have a good property manager looking after your investment. Don't go skinny on that, because investment property is one of your biggest assets here. This is your future. This is your retirement plan. This is you retiring at the age of 45 or 55 or 65, whatever you decide for yourself, whatever you decide is perfect for you. So you got to have the right people in your team looking after your biggest asset. Don't try to do it yourself. I know the Kiwi way is do it yourself, mate, but don't. Guys, seriously, this is something that I wouldn't recommend doing it yourself, because I tried. And as I said to you, and this is why I've, explained to you my stories, that I've tried and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. You've got to have professionals on your team. So as we come to a close, I really hope that you've learned now how you can buy an investment property without cash down. I really hope you know how to calculate your returns, that you know to set up a proper budget, and that working with a team is essential. And if all of this was valuable to you tonight, I would like to invite you to please join my Facebook group. I've opened a little hub. I call that Home Loan Hub. So if you're watching this from your computer and you've got your cell phone handy, please go ahead, scan the QR codes. WhatsApp will take you to my number. So just even flick me a hello. So you are on my WhatsApp, because I do see my WhatsApp quite frequently versus messages or Messenger sometimes. And then Facebook is that Home Loan Hub, where I will go live every couple of weeks, answering your questions, giving you some case studies. I just did one last night, another one due in 2 weeks. And again, use me as the resource. I've got 11 years of finances in my head. We've got over 20 applications a week that we're working on day in, day out. I meet with over 100 people a month. So I see it all. I see different cases day in, day out. And you don't, right? With all due respect, you guys don't work in this industry. You don't live and breathe in this industry, but you might be an amazing specialist in your own field. So my recommendation is hang out with those people that know their stuff. And we will be sharing other resources on that page as well. And it's an open hub, so you can actually ask your questions, invite your friends, and I highly encourage you. So without further ado, it's question time. I'm opening the floor. So if you guys have any questions, now this is your chance to shine. You can either ask them in the chat bar or in the Q&A bar. Cool. That's a very, very good question. Where do we get our current home value from that we can use these calculations? Right. That's a very good question, Lucy. So where do you get your current home value? Often people go on homes.co.nz, because homes.co.nz gets the data of velocity, sometimes. So that could be a good one. But the most reliable would be sometimes most reliable would be running an application through the bank. So again, either going directly to the bank or do an application with me. But homes.co.nz, CoreLogic, Velocity, we have access to that. Through Velocity, I can buy the report that shows your current value. I think it doesn't cost much. I think it was like $20 last time I looked into it. Between $20 to $50. It runs a little report and it shows you your values as well. So we can look it up for you. The short answer is we can look it up for you, because sometimes homes.co.nz shows slightly lower, or on your app. Again, if you already have a mortgage, it may show it on your app. So you can have a look at that. But I encourage you, sit down with me. We can have a look at it together. Cool. Awesome. Any other questions? I've lost my chat box. Where is it? Oh, there it is. With your properties you rent out, will the rent you receive usually cover the mortgage on each property, or will they have to be topped up by yourself? That's a very good question, Jordan. And this is where you got to calculate your repayments upfront. Does that cover or not? And remember, property goes in a cycle. Rates go in a cycle. At the moment, we're at the time where the property prices are slightly lower, but the rates are higher. That means that your repayments are probably not going to cover the mortgage. So you may have to make some sacrifices. Like those guys there, they have 3 jobs that they were working to cover. And yes, it does come with some stress. I know when I explain things to people, everything is like positive and full of energy and yeah, it's all nice and easy. But the reality, it's not as nice and easy. The reality is it can be stressful. It can be hard. So my suggestion to you is do your numbers and be prepared for the worst times as well. And this is why we set up that buffer. Remember, this is why we set up that buffer. So if you can't top it up yourself, you have to, dip into it as well. Does your mortgage repayments goes when you get the second property? Where does it go, Daniel? Does your mortgage repayments go up? Yes, thank you. Does your mortgage repayment go up when you get the second property? Often, of course, because you have a second mortgage to pay for. So your first repayments stay as they are, and you just get a second mortgage, second property that you pay for. But here, at least you've got a bit of rent coming in to help you pay for this mortgage. And hopefully with the introduction of interest deductibility back, we can offset a little bit more of that, so you don't have to pay much tax, because this is where a lot of investors were getting stung in the last 3 years. As the Labor changed rules on tax deductibility, investors started to pay lots of tax. I was going to use another word, but I decided to be a good girl today and not swear. So now, hopefully, with the national changing all of that, we can offset certain things as expenses and don't pay income tax on having a second property. And therefore, whatever rent you get should hopefully cover your repayments. Cool. I hope that made sense. Keep them coming, guys. Keep them coming. And if you've missed out on that QR code, here it is again. So remember, feel free to join the tribe, ask me questions. You've got direct access to me and to my knowledge. Use me. Absolutely use me if you can. And feel free to invite your friends today as well, because the more people join, the more change we can make. Because I do want to have a tribe of people that achieve great things in life. Because if I could do it as an immigrant to New Zealand, I believe any of you guys can do it. But I did have to work several jobs and hustle on the side constantly and get creative about my income streams. So, this is not for the faint-hearted. I will say it up front, that property investment is not for the faint-hearted. Wow, that's a really good question. So Daniel is asking, if the income rental yields is less than 5%, would you rather invest in a fixed deposit that pays out 6.25% instead? That's a good one. Again, what the first thing you got to do is assess your investor profile. Are you a safe investor or you're a risk taker investor? Because if you're a safe investor, then sticking with term deposits and bonds will probably be a better idea for you. But if you are a risk taker and if you want to build a longer future, having a property probably is better, because the properties tend to go up in value on average 7%, 7 to 10% a year. So remember, even if the yield at upfront may be low, in 10 years' time, it may supersede your term deposit returns. So again, what game are you playing here? If you only have 10K to invest, then absolutely term deposit is the way to go. But if you've got extra equity or extra cash that you've come to, then buying a property, because I'm a bit biased. I love properties, I must say. So having a property long-term will be amazing. I had a guy, when I used to work in a bank, this guy came in and he had over 20 properties and he was in his late 60s. And I said, what are you going to do with all these houses? He said, well, I'm starting to sell them, because he had about, 500K mortgage at that time and 20 properties. So as he was selling them, he could pay down all the loans and then keep the rest as residual income. Because that's the point, right? How much income do you need in 20 years' time? How much income will these properties bring you continuously so you don't have to work? Because the idea is to replace your income. So if you're earning 100K at the moment, you probably need 5 properties at 500K, bringing you $500 a week to replace your income today. And if that continues to go up, your income continues to go up, then you can retire. So 5 properties, 500K each, $500 per week return will give you over 125K a year. Easy. Hope that made sense. If anyone wants to chat to me direct, guys, feel free to reach out. No problem at all. I will just double check YouTube. We had some people watching there as well. There were some questions. If it's not new build property, is it 30% always? Yes. In most cases, yes. So if it's not a new build property, you do need 30% deposit. However, because I also work with other banks, I also work with banks that are non-banks, they can take a property that's not new build with 20% deposit. Again, this is where the power of mortgage advisor comes in, because we do have access to all the different lenders out there. We have, all these possibilities for you that are possible outside of main bank criteria. Cool. Awesome. So you guys can see my beautiful face back again. I don't know if you could see me before or not. Here we are. Lovely. Any last burning questions before I wrap it up? It's been a fantastic 50 minutes with you guys. Can't believe 50 minutes have passed. God, I can talk for an hour to myself. So please help me out here. Have a bit of a chat going. And I did write down who I owe chocolate fish, by the way, as well. Oh, thank you, Zoe. Thank you for coming along. Right. Jordan and Rachel, I owe you a chocolate fish. Lucky you both on Kapiti, so I can actually do that. Thank you for coming along tonight, everybody. It was absolute pleasure having you all. I hope you've learned something new today. I hope you will take away some of this knowledge. And look, as I said to you, please give me return information. So if there is something else you would like to learn about, let me know. I am basing this webinars for you. I'm sharing my knowledge with you. So please let me know if there is something else I can do for you. Amazing. Have a fantastic night, everyone. And I'm going to wrap it up now. Take care.